We're in the apocalypse, everybody. That's where we are. It's kind of scary. And I think people are looking at this Ukraine-Russia story and saying, how is this going to affect us? Is this worth paying attention to? I mean, sure, none of us want nuclear missiles to be flying over the polar ice caps. But other than that, is it really going to hit us? And the answer, of course, to that is unfortunately, yes. This is not a faraway story. This is a you and I, everyday life sort of story. This is the sort of story when you go to the gas pumps, you're going to be affected by it in a very, very big way. And of course, there is a pretty easy solution to all of this, which is, I don't know, giving the world a more robust oil supply, something that we can do very, very easily here in the United States of America. But when you look at the way our administration is reacting, you see, even if you paint it in the most positive light, they are trying to find oil from other nations like Iran, like Venezuela, because we simply will not open up our own supply. We will not supply the world with oil because our administration has decided to think that, look, long term, we don't want to get this opened up because it's going to affect our plans with global warming. So sit back, relax, watch the apocalypse develop as we sit back and try to pester other angry nations that will use the money we're giving them to buy oil to do all sorts of terrible things to their own people and people in their regions, because right now we have different priorities. We can't be bothered to do it ourselves. We can't be bothered to encourage Canada to do it. We can't be bothered to bother other friendly nations to increase their supply. Instead, we're going to sit back and watch as the apocalypse develops. And everybody in California is paying $6.71 a gallon. It is absolutely unbelievable. But they don't want to start these long-term projects because they don't want to sit here and watch as the negative consequences hit us because, look, we've got global warming to deal with. Remember, that's the existential threat. That's the greatest existential threat we all face, is a 0.9 degrees temperature rise over a century. Sure, there are explosions going off all over Ukraine, and sure, we face a massive, massive oil issue right now. But instead of dealing with that right now or preparing for this in the past years, we've decided to go the other direction and turn these nozzles and faucets off. So we are no longer producing the oil that we were just a few years ago when President Trump was president. And look, people like to go and be critical about President Trump. Obviously, the media is built to its entire viewership plan on just wrecking Donald Trump. But Trump went very clearly to the Germans and others and said, hey, you shouldn't be depending on Russia. Russia is a bad actor. For all the beating that Donald Trump took about Russia, yeah, he did say things that made me feel really uncomfortable about Vladimir Putin. But, the bottom line is he didn't really seem to mean them. Donald Trump has had a loose relationship with the truth at times. But a lot of that has to do with him being in a constant state of negotiation. Does anyone believe he's really friends with Kim Jong-un? I don't think that was ever true. He just believed it was the best thing for him to say at that time to better his negotiating position. It's a position that I think makes a lot of Americans, including myself, at times uncomfortable. But I don't think anybody believes he was actually friends and buddies with Kim Jong-un or Vladimir Putin. The bottom line is he was constantly negotiating in public, in private, all the time. And one of the things he said was, he would say these things, and at times they would seem too friendly towards a brutal killer as a dictator. But his policies were much more harsh toward Russia than either President Biden's are or President Obama's were. There's a reason why you saw President Obama see an invasion from Russia. You saw President Biden getting an invasion from Russia. And you didn't see one when Donald Trump was president. He treated these things differently. Listen to him talk to the Germans about their plans to import and become dependent on Russia for natural gas. Look at not only what Donald Trump says, which he's basically calling the situation that winds up occurring, but look at the smug response from the Germans at the end of this video. They're laughing at him, and look where we are now.
Reliance on a single foreign supplier can leave a nation vulnerable to extortion and intimidation. That is why we congratulate European states such as Poland for leading the construction of a Baltic pipeline so that nations are not dependent on Russia to meet their energy needs. Germany will become totally dependent on Russian energy if it does not immediately change course. Here in the Western Hemisphere, we are committed to maintaining our independence from the encroachment of expansionist foreign powers.
They think it's funny. Do they still think it's funny? Is it still a funny joke? Germany, do you get the right to laugh at anyone else after what you've done over the past 100 years, Germany? Do ya? Do you ever get to laugh? I think laughing should be banned in Germany after what you've put the world through over the past century or so. No more laughing for you, Germany. And you certainly don't get to laugh as you're building a pipeline from Russia that you yourself have now had to shut down because Donald Trump was right all that time. And Donald Trump, by the way, wasn't the only one that was right. In fact, it wasn't even just conservatives who were right on this. Anybody who knew anything about Russia thought this was a bad idea. And you continued to go along as if you could somehow will Vladimir Putin into being nice. He's not nice. Trish Regan points out the energy policy of this administration has been nothing short of disastrous. We don't have the bandwidth to get energy online today thanks to Biden killing Keystone. ESG, PC nonsense force institutional investors to shun investment in energy projects. $200 oil. Here we come. We hit 130 over the weekend. I think it backed off to about 120 today, but it is really, really high as we've seen it in a very, very long time. To the point that even the guy who's building spaceships he's building ships to outer space so that someday we can avoid the evils of fossil fueled caused global warming. Even that guy is saying, time to open the spigots. Elon Musk tweets, hate to say it, but we need to increase oil and gas output immediately. Extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures. Obviously, this would negatively affect Tesla, his company, but sustainable energy solutions simply cannot react instantaneously to make up for Russian oil and gas exports. That's an amazing thing for a guy like Elon Musk to say. And he's being, of course, real and accurate. He sees the promise long-term in solar. He's got a damn solar company. He's also got a flamethrower company, but that's a totally different situation. He's got an electric car company. And yet here he is saying oil and gas, yeah, we got to do this. Until we can't be dependent. We're not depending on Russia anymore. If that's in our rearview mirror, we can move on to these other things. And as crazy as that sounds to many conservatives, it's pretty consistent with the conservative view of the world. The conservative view of the world is not that we should never use solar power. It's not that we should never use wind power. It's not that we should never use renewables. We should use them when they're ready. That's the difference between us and the Democrats. When they're ready and better, let's use them. When they're not, let's not. That's the conservative position. The liberal position is use them whether they're good or not. Use them whether they're affordable or not. Use them whether poor people are going to be able to afford the energy they generate or not. Musk goes on to say, hopefully, it is now extremely obvious that Europe should restart dormant nuclear power stations and increase power output of existing ones. This is critical to national and international security. For those who mistakenly think this is a radiation risk, pick what you think is the worst location. I will travel there and eat locally grown food on TV. I did this in Japan many years ago, shortly after Fukushima. Radiation risk is much, much lower than most people believe. We've gone over this many, many times on this program. It's one of the safest forms of electricity ever developed by human beings. And this comes from a guy that didn't eat locally sourced food, really wanted to visit Chernobyl and would have eaten locally sourced food, but I will say this, at least I did drink some Roundup on TV. I did that much for you. I don't know how many substances I can pour into myself. Honestly, I'm not that healthy. So saving me is really not that much of a... what substance could I possibly pour down in my gullet that would be worse than Taco Bell? I mean, I'm eating that almost every day. So, look, it's tempting to want to blame all of this on President Biden. I get that, and that's ridiculous. But, you know, I will say this. You probably should put nearly all the blame on him. You could certainly blame him for making it all worse. You could certainly blame him for being incompetent. And you can certainly blame him for his complete and constant signal of weakness to the world. Vladimir Putin is the one who invaded Ukraine, and he deserves the blame for that. But we loosened our policies toward Russia when Biden got into office. We moved to limit our own energy production and therefore our energy independence when Biden got into office. And we showed Vladimir Putin over and over again that we would not stand in his way. We showed him with our moves on Russia and with oil. We showed him with our response, or lack thereof, in Hong Kong. And we stood up on the highest mountain and put up a giant glowing marquee announcing our weakness with our pathetic and embarrassing fiasco in Afghanistan. Biden's weakness didn't make Russia invade, it just made it easier and more likely. And now the Ukrainian people are suffering. Our economy is suffering, and we're all suffering at the gas pump. I didn't have high hopes for a Biden presidency. I thought he would suck. But this has been a masterclass on how to suck beyond all human recognition. Only Joe Biden could bring about an era where we could literally make things a little better if we could only go through a zombie apocalypse.
If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to our channel so you'll be sure to see similar videos from BlazeTV with the added bonus of signaling YouTube that your voice and opinion still matters. And if you're looking for more great conservative content, check out one of the 2 videos suggested here. And let's go, Brandon.